The bag salad industry requires harvest and coring in the field, and so we have a knife with a tubular blade on it, which is used to do that coring right in the field. So workers will remove the head and do the coring right in the field.
But before a new invention can be used, Director of the U of A Research Center, Kurt Nolte, says a lot of work must be done.
Researchers found that on the original coring knife, this area right here is an extremely rough surface, which leads to thousands of particles of bacteria that could transfer to your food. So after about 6 months of research, they came up with this knife, which has a very smooth surface, which means less bacteria can transfer to your food.
Researchers Emily Foley and Diana Rios tested 100 heads of lettuce on each of the 9 knives designed by Nolte and Mark Seaman, treating them with bacteria and documenting their findings to discover the safest version of the knife.
We don't know the answer, and so in order to get answers, we have to do a full-blown research endeavor or a project to make sure that the public is safe.
Because they can't afford to send a product out into the workforce that could cause illness.
What can really happen if this bacteria is passed on to the food?
Well, lettuce has bacteria, but there are certain strains of bacteria that cause human illness. And so what we want to do is minimize that risk so that people do not become sick when they eat a bag salad or any produce that we grow here in the county.
The next step was to see the blade in action.
So workers, when we did the evaluation in the field, felt that this was a little bit too long for them. We don't want to run the risk of injuring a worker at the expense of a harvest. The one that worked the best in the field, as well as being safe, is this one actually. It was an intermediate distance from the blade to the handle because we felt that the handle itself could be at risk. And also it was a whole new redesign of the blade. This is a lot shorter distance, so the cores can actually fall out of the knife. They don't have to be picked out by hand.
Which means the millions of cores that usually get thrown out at the plant can go right back into the soil. Nolte says the knife is not only the best option for the farmers, but the consumers too.
And how many heads of lettuce would that knife contaminate versus this one if it had something on it?
So if this knife was used and if it was contaminated, it could contaminate as many as 100 lettuce heads. This knife, on the other hand, if it was contaminated, could contaminate as many as maybe 10 to 12.
So it just completely 90% take that risk out.
Yeah.
And why is food safety so important?
Well, food safety is important for our industry because we want to ensure that the public is safe, we want to ensure that the produce is safe for the public to eat, and we want to make sure that the industry remains a solid part of our local economy.
This Homegrown segment is brought to you by the University of Arizona Yuma.